Today we are going to level up your Spanish in a very easy and simple way. We're going to get to an advanced beginner intermediate level very quick. And the way we're going to do that is by learning 6 structures, 6 patterns. Well, actually 7, because I'm going to give you an extra one at the end. And if you learn them, you will be able to build hundreds of phrases right away. So it's kind of like my previous video about the 6 structures with infinitives, but this time is going to be one step further. We're not going to use infinitives, we're going to use the gerundio, present participles or gerunds, the ing verbs. And this is really going to improve your Spanish and it's going to make you sound much more advanced and more like a native speaker because we use this all the time. Let's start. All right, so the first thing we need to do is pick some action verbs. So let's do that first. Let's pick hablar, to speak, trabajar, to work, hacer, to do, to make, ver, to see, to watch, and vivir, to live. Second step, we said we are not going to work with infinitives, but with present participle, gerunds, ing verbs. To do that in Spanish, we have 2 kinds of terminations. So the verbs ending in ar, like hablar, trabajar, we have to remove that termination, ar, and change it to ando. So hablar, to speak, hablando, speaking. Trabajar, to work, trabajando, working. And verbs ending in er, or ir, we remove the termination as well, er, and change it to yendo. So hacer, to do, to make, haciendo, doing, making. Ver, to see, to watch, viendo, seeing, watching. And vivir is the same, we remove ir and change for yendo as well. So vivir, to live, viviendo, living. Alright, so that was easy. Now you can turn infinitives into gerunds, or present participles, ing verbs, which is really useful. And now let's see the structures, the other verbs, that work with these. And don't forget, in Spanish, ing verbs don't work with the same structures as in English. For example, we cannot say, me gusta trabajando, I like working. That doesn't exist. I made another video about this, about when not to use ing verbs in Spanish, that I really recommend watching because it's a mistake that most English speakers make. So let's see the ones that we actually do use ing verbs with. The main one is, of course, estar, to be. With this one, we build the continuous tenses. And the way it works is, we're going to modify only the structure verbs. The action verbs are going to stay in the present participle, gerund. They are not going to change. We're going to change the structure verbs depending on the subject or depending on the tense. We'll talk about that in a moment. But let's start with me. For example, I could say, estoy hablando con Alex. I am talking to Alex right now. Or, estoy trabajando. I'm working. Estoy haciendo la cena. I'm making dinner. Estoy viendo la tele. I'm watching TV. Estoy viviendo en París. I'm living in Paris. That's it. So we take the structure verb, we conjugate it for I am, estoy, and we use the present participle, the ing verb, for the action verb. Now we can play a little bit with this. For example, we can add no first to build a negative phrase, like no estoy hablando con Alex. I am not talking to Alex. No estoy viendo la tele. I am not watching TV. And we can play with the structure verb, with the verb to be in this case. We can conjugate it for a different subject to talk about another person. So we could say, ¿estás trabajando? Are you working? Or estamos viendo la tele. We are watching TV. You see how that works? So now we'll keep the action verbs in the ing form as they are. And we're going to see some more structured verbs that native speakers use all the time. Like, for example, seguir. We use seguir as to still be doing something or to continue doing something. Like, sigo trabajando en Microsoft. I'm still working at Microsoft. And yes, that's how we say Microsoft, Microsoft. Or, ¿sigues viviendo en París? Are you still living in Paris? See how I changed the verb seguir to you, sigues, but viviendo stays the same. A very similar one is continuar. Continuar, to continue. Continúo viviendo aquí. I continue living here. Another one would be pasarse. This one is reflexive. We use the se, pasarse. So we're going to use a reflexive pronoun as well. But that's a matter for another lesson. And it means to spend time. And we can separate this verb from the ing verb and enter the amount of time in between. For example, me paso horas viendo Netflix. I spend hours watching Netflix. So same as in English. Another one that works this way as a reflexive is quedarse. Quedarse means to stay, to remain. Like, siempre me quedo hablando con Ana un rato. I always stay speaking to Ana for a while. Now we have a very useful one, and people don't know very well how to use this one, and that's the verb llevar. Llevar usually means to carry, to wear something, to take something somewhere, but when it's followed by ing verbs, it means to have been. So something you have been doing for a while, and you still do. Very important, you are still doing it. Like, llevamos hablando 2 horas. We have been talking for 2 hours. We can also enter the amount of time in between llevar and ing verbs, like, llevo 3 años trabajando aquí. I have been 3 years working here. And I still do, I still work here. That's a very important detail. And you can also ask people, ¿cuánto tiempo llevas viviendo aquí? How long have you been living here? How long in Spanish is how much time. ¿Cuánto tiempo? And you don't even need tiempo. You can just say, ¿cuánto llevas viviendo aquí? How long have you been living here? And the answer would be something like, llevo viviendo aquí 5 años. I have been living here 5 years. Let's see one last one. Well, actually it's 2 together, because this one seems to be a bit confusing. We can use the verb empezar o terminar, to start, to finish. Normally, when you want to say that you start or you finish doing something, we use the infinitive. You can watch the last video to see this. But when followed by ing verbs, the meaning is more like how you start doing something and how you end up or how you finish doing something. How? So it's the way you start and finish, not just that you start or finish. For example, if I say empiezo a hablar, I start to talk, I start to speak, I start speaking. It is an action that I start doing. But if I say empiezo hablando, it means that that's the way I start something. For example, I could say empezamos hablando y terminamos comiendo juntos. We started up talking and we ended up having lunch together, eating together. So I'm talking about the way things happened, not just that we started to do this. This is a bit more advanced, but we can also change the tense of the first verb. For example, estuve hablando con Alex. I was talking to Alex in the past. Estuve is I was. Or estuve viviendo en París. I was living in Paris at some point in the past. Let's choose another tense. For example, the future. Seguiré trabajando en esto. I will keep working on this. So it can be to still be doing something or to keep doing something. O te pasaste 5 años viviendo en París. You spent 5 years living in Paris. You see here we use te, so you, I change the person, and pasaste, also the tense, the past. Te pasaste, you spent. But viviendo stays the same, doesn't change, living. O ayer me quedé, the past, viendo la tele hasta las 2. Yesterday, I stayed watching TV until 2. That's the past, me quedé. Or we can do future. Esta noche me quedaré trabajando hasta tarde. Tonight, I'll stay working until late. Or another example, empecé trabajando de limpiador y terminé trabajando de director. I started up working as a cleaner and I ended up working as a director. So it's the way I started and the way I finished. All right, and we are done. Now you can use these structures to build as many phrases as you want. Just don't forget, change the action verb to the present participle, the gerund, the ing form, which now you already know how to do it as well. So if you found this video useful, please consider subscribing so you can get more free content like this. And let me know in the comments if you have any questions or anything you want to say. I always read them and answer to all of them if I can. And I will see you in the next one. Hasta luego!